My name is Steve Rothberg and I am the Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Research at Loughborough University. I want to say a few words about the importance of open access, and so I've picked out two reasons why I think open access is an important policy for us to pursue. The first is open in order to recognise fairly the contribution that the authors, us, and our funders make to our research, and the second is to maximise the impact of our excellent research. But also I want to acknowledge that there are challenges in us delivering on an open access policy. Peer review of publication is an absolutely critical component in the dissemination of high quality research, and so it's really fundamental to the achievement of our ambitions as academic researchers. But at the same time, when we all publish, we want other researchers and those who are interested in using and applying our research to be able to get unrestricted access to our publications. And therein lies the big challenge, and I don't want to overlook that challenge. The all-important system of peer review, of expert peer review, and then its dissemination, the dissemination of those publications through print or online channels, they're essential, but they come at a cost, and you can't ignore that they come at a cost. While the authors, we just want to share our work without limit and then be free to reuse components of that work in our future research. So I don't want to diminish the challenge, but I do want us to look for new ways forward that meet the needs of the authors and the publishers while retaining that all-important rigorous peer review.
Open in order to be RC UK compliant. Projects that are funded by research councils, for example in my case EPSRC, receive funding from the government. Therefore research councils want the projects to be freely available to the wider community, to the general public, because in essence it's being paid for by the taxpayer. For the general public, it's beneficial for them to understand the wider scientific research and perhaps give them a deeper understanding of some of the things that they hear about in the news or in the newspapers. I think if the data's out there available to multiple teams, this can speed up the process of research, enabling greater progress, also reducing the need to repeat experiments, which again is really beneficial and reduces cost to the taxpayer.
Open in order to increase the reach of your research. Reach in terms of academic reach, but also in terms of practice and professional reach. I think it increases the visibility of your research. It means that it's available across the world. Usually with online resources, people can access your work more easily. It means that your research is available to all institutions, so not just those institutions that have big budgets, that have large subscriptions to journals. It means your work can reach all quarters of the world, and I think that's important in terms of increasing your profile, but also advancing science. It also means that your work can be accessible to those who aren't working in an academic institution. So my work has been picked up by people in the media, and I've been invited to contribute to different media outlets in terms of what my work means for public practice, for example. My work is qualitative in nature, so I interview people, typically marginalised populations who don't have a voice, people with physical disabilities, people with mental illness, people who often don't get to express their views on the world. Now that's important to understand that from an academic point of view, but that can also be a source of comfort to people from those groups. It can also be of interest to mental health charities, disability charities, and people who work in that sector. So that qualitative data has been picked up by various organisations, has been useful to those people. It's also been useful to people who are those experiencing mental illness, and those sorts of individuals would be those who typically wouldn't have access to academic journals.
There are some obvious reasons, such as the dissemination of your papers, your outputs, and the access obviously increases exponentially because everyone could have access to your papers. But then there are other reasons that might not be so obvious, such as the fact that those who have worked in participatory projects that might not be familiar with the scholar world or academic world, and if they see how we actually use our qualitative results or quantitative results, and they can read one of our papers, this could help them to understand and locate and contextualize our research in also their own views, which is sometimes very difficult. A good example would be to talk about one of my outputs on the repository, obviously, was picked up by a journal who contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in writing an article for their journals. But actually, I was flabbergasted because that journal is so far from my discipline, and I thought, why do they want this kind of paper? That doesn't really fit the ethos, in my opinion. But then it made me realize that the bridge that the open access can create is bigger than what you can imagine, and it opens opportunities with unknown disciplines, such as in this case, for example.
Open in order to increase the pace and quality of research. I'd like to tell you about the archive. Well, it was invented by the physics community. It now has much wider scope, including mathematics, computer science, quantitative biology, quantitative finance, statistics, electrical engineering and system science, as well as economics. Currently, the archive receives around 10,000 submissions a month and contains over 1 million articles. Not only that, it has about 16 million downloads a month. As priority is established through submission to the archive, it makes it easy to talk freely at conferences and with potential collaborators. It greatly accelerates the pace of research. We get access to results as quickly as they are made available by the authors. Bringing all these factors together, we can see that the archive greatly accelerates the pace of research. Importantly, the archive establishes priority so that other researchers cannot claim to have been unaware of research, even though it has not appeared in the standard published literature. But more importantly than this, it improves research. It becomes increasingly common to use the archive as a mechanism for soliciting feedback on preprints prior to submission to a journal, so that issues can be addressed that authors, referees and editors may miss, as a larger number of people can be involved in the entire process.
Open access in order to enhance collaboration, because I believe open access can provide not only a way of opening up research papers and dissemination, but also opening up data sets for other researchers worldwide to collaborate on, and also to open up the methods behind analysing those data sets, to open up scientific methods to enhance the scientific discipline. Once a paper is published and made open access, it's also possible on the Loughborough University data repository to publish supporting material, and we've been publishing our data sets as part of that the paper is based on. But those data sets are the raw underlying data, and we analyse them to produce the graphs and tables for the paper itself. And the methods of doing that can be made also open access and available. And I'm doing that using Python programming language, and in particular a tool called Jupyter Notebooks, which are an online tool which allow both the scientific process, the algorithms used, in analysing the data available, and also allows the graphs and tables, the outputs, to be plotted alongside them. What's really interesting about it is that these notebooks can be made available, and other people, other researchers can come and make changes to these algorithms and rerun them, and so slightly tweak or change or modify the results of the paper if they've got a particular area of interest. And that makes the process much more two-way and interactive rather than a one-way dissemination of research outputs.
There are various important contributions that make a great research output, but it's clear to me, isn't it clear to us all, that it's the authors who make the biggest contribution of all, and their efforts are made possible by a variety of funders from our employers to the research councils or the charitable trusts that fund that research. And so that's why I want open access, in order to recognise fairly the contribution of us, the authors, and the funders of our research. And that fair deal ought to mean that as authors we can share our work without limit. That way we can maximise the societal and cultural and economic impacts of our research, and in doing that we make the world a better place, because that's what our research is all about, isn't it?